the annual recruitment work has to go through such a procedure. First, mobilization. After the mobilization meeting, of course, registration. Second, visually, it eliminates a batch. 3. Preliminary political review. Eliminates a batch. After 2 rounds of elimination. 4. Sent to the commune for physical examination. A lot of people are going to be eliminated here. The main problems are trachoma, otitis media, and hepatomegaly. Children in the countryside yearly do not go to the hospital except for being sick and unable to get out of bed. If there are some minor problems in the eyes and ears, they suck it in. So this leaves future troubles. There is also a more concentrated problem in the liver. Children growing up in the countryside all have a common feature, which is severe malnutrition. The most important thing is that the body with severe malnutrition has to undertake overloaded physical labor since childhood. Over time, the liver will swell. During the physical examination, the doctor's fingers are pressed down along your costal margin and the liver is not qualified beyond 0.5 centimeter of the costal margin. It is this 0.5 that has thrown down so many passionate young people. For those who passed the physical examination, 5. Political review. Submitting rigid and formal political review materials, eliminate a batch. Whoever sticks to the end is a godsend. Think about it, how big it is to be a soldier. The motherland and the people will be handed over to you, and it is up to you to defend it. So it can be careless. Every year, conscription is a mass movement. Since it is a mass movement, as usual, the villages have to put up colorful slogans that say, "One red heart, two preparations," respond to the call of the motherland, obey the choice of the motherland, the needs of the motherland are my needs, be vigilant and defend the motherland, the soldiers and the people are the foundation of victory, and slogans such as "Prepare for war, prepare for famine, and serve the people." Once a slogan hits the wall, it is no longer the same as a slogan. It's not just waving, not just saying. It is written, solemn, thoughtful, with universal force, and with the function of truth and law. As soon as the mobilization meeting was over, Dunfang came to Dao Demon's big house, and the two looked at each other. To sign up or not to sign up? They can make up their minds. In fact, to do or not to do is the same. For one village, for anything related to the organization, the result is often in advance, and it is impossible to follow. This is a characteristic of organizations. In other words, the fact that Dunfang and Demon became soldiers had already come out. Even if the physical examination is qualified, it can only mean that your body is not bad, and you should not expect anything else. However, the two discussed it silently and still wanted to register. It is completely out of temperament. Young people just love to do with temperament. But it has to be said the other way around. If you don't take things out of your mind, are you still called a young man? Dunfang and Demon are busy here signing up and having physical examination. There is one thing they don't know. This year's conscription is different from the past, and the situation is special. In previous years, the number of people has been relatively large. Generally speaking, there are 70 to 80 people in the whole commune, and each village can apportion 2 or 3. This year is different. Special forces are recruited. There are only 52 places in the whole commune, and only one is finally allocated to one village. It was Wu Manling who won it, but it was not announced to the public. As early as she received the notice, Wu Manling made an internal decision in her heart to give it to Dunfang. She had been looking for an opportunity to talk to Dunfang alone and tell him about the decision of the branch. This would be more formal, but not yet. During the preliminary political trial, Wu Meiling wanted to strangle Demon to death. But thinking about it, she can't. It was hard to tell if the info had leaked out after being raped by him just now. In case of any rumors in the village, she pinched it, which was equivalent to confirming the matter from the negative side. Can't do it. She put her legs up as if nothing had happened. She also made a few jokes and said a few good words about Demon. Wu Meiling has Wu Meiling's abacus, so maybe his medical examination will not be passed. Even if he passes, there's still a threshold for the final political check. At that time, there will be no need for her to talk. Who would have thought that Demon passed the physical examination? How could he not be blind deaf with sores in his mouth, pus on his back, and cancer on his body? Wu Meiling has a deep hatred for Demon, but the most important thing is fear. As a village party secretary, as a girl, she has scruples. On the contrary, Demon is unscrupulous. What Wu Meiling was really afraid of was actually this, afraid of his unscrupulousness. This man is crazy. He can do anything, even if he was sent to jail, and further, even if he was shot. Would Wu Meiling's face be saved? Is she still the village party secretary? You can burn both jade and stone. Wu Meiling wanted to leave the only place to Dunfang, but she was actually selfish. She wanted to spend some good days with Dunfang before he left. Yes, she wants to be good with Dunfang. What this good means is hard to say, but one thing is for sure, good is particularly charming, lingering when you think about it, and when the night falls, it hangs and lingers there. Of course, this good is definitely not in love, not about marriage. If Wu Meiling and Dunfang really fall in love and eventually marry, Wu Meiling is reluctant. Eventually, Dunfang doesn't deserve her. But where's the boy who does? None. By comparison, it's still Dunfang. Dunfang is literate, looks good, has white teeth, and has a strong body, a body that can be leaned on and reassuring. These are what Wu Meiling likes. Another point is the most important. Dunfang is the person who will leave after all. Even if it is good, it will not last long. As soon as he left, there would be actually nothing left. From then on, they would be separated from each other. No matter how good they were, they would not be able to talk about marriage. Wu Meiling has been very attentive in this matter, and she is a little obsessed. She just wants to be good with Dunfang earlier. What does good look like? She really didn't know about it. Wu Meiling had cried 3 or 4 times over this matter, and she knew it in her heart that it was not good for her to do so. Once you start, it will be difficult to get it back. Can't pull it back. Wu Meiling said to herself that even it was wrong, she wanted to be wrong, just wrong this time. Without this mistake, she wouldn't be reconciled after all. Talking in detail, Wu Meiling's biggest wish is to sleep in Dunfang's arms. The idea is beyond borders. Every time she thought of it, Wu Meiling panicked. After all, Wu Meiling was still too tired. After so many years, in fact, she has been tired all the time, and she has been trying to do her best, and her body can't bear it. If she doesn't care about anything, stays down to earth, stays safe, closes her eyes, and gets a deep and long sleep, that's fine. If Dunfang can hold her and protect her, it must be good. No one will disturb her. In Dunfang's arms, she would be safe. Who has the courage to offend Dunfang? She could then rest her head on Dunfang's chest, unbutton Dunfang's buttons, burrow into it, and bury her in it. His chest is so strong, so broad, and his warmth is certain. Even if she doesn't sleep, it's good to cry once for no reason. She wants to tell him everything, crying while talking, telling him what she wants to say in her heart. She won't say anything about Demon. It can be said. If she did, Dunfang would kill him. He would be dead. Not to mention that, just like being bitten by a dog. Thinking of this, Wu Mailing's tears came down. She sat on the edge of the bed. She was stunned with her eyes facing the cover lamp, and her tears flowed involuntarily. She must let Dunfang go as a soldier and let him go. If he doesn't go, they can't be good. There is no impermeable wall under the sky. Once the affair between her and Dunfang gets out, it will be bad. Wu Mailing was stunned and weeping. Dunfang was not idle either. After eating, Dunfang put his chopsticks on the edge of the bowl and pushed them away. His face was stiff and ashen. Shen Cuizhen glanced at Dunfang, took down the chopsticks silently, and put them on the table. This habit of Dunfang is bad. Only beggars will put chopsticks on the bowl, and the more they do, the poorer they will become. Shen Cuizhen had told Dunfang so many times about this matter, but he just couldn't change it. Since he went to the pig farm, Dunfang has never been home except for 3 meals, and she has no idea what he's doing all day long. He didn't speak when he ate, as if his tongue had been borrowed. Someone borrowed it, but no one paid it back. If you ask him, for example, do you want to add a quilt to the bed, and whether you want to bring back the sheets to wash, he will not open his mouth, but he will say, in his throat, neither saying yes or no, only, making her so anxious. If you ask too many questions, his face doesn't seem good. No one knows when it started. He became the retired emperor of this family. Everyone should see his attitude. When it was time to eat, he came back, and as soon as he got home, there was no movement. It's like eating a tofu bowl. Wang Cunliang doesn't speak either. Since the day Hongfen got married, Wang Cunliang and Dunfang never said a word. In front of so many people, Dunfang didn't give any honor to his stepfather. That's all. What kind of people does Dunfang associate with in Wang village? Who are they? Little gangsters, little ruffians, and little hooligans. To catch up with the troubled times, it is definitely a group of desperados. These people, Wang Cunliang, do not want to provoke, nor can he afford to provoke them. If I knew it was like this today, why did I let him to go to high school in the first place? You don't have to go to high school to be a hooligan. Good. Dunfang has become the commander-in-chief of the outlaws. Got promoted. Congratulations. Wang Cunliang lit the smoke pot and summed up his experience and lessons. He should never have remarried. Stepmother is not easy to be, and neither is stepfather. Especially the boy who has been fed hard and painstakingly. In the end, you don't know what kind of ancestor you've got. Pushing aside the rice bowl for dinner, Dunfang went out. Just came to the door of the patio, but found 4 or 5 little brothers standing outside their house in darkness, waiting for him. Dunfang walked over, puffed up his stomach, and burped 3 or 4 times. He didn't have the mood to fool around with them now. After thinking about it for a while, he said, "Well, you can move freely tonight." Hongqi said, "What are you doing tonight?" Dunfang put aside his topic and said, "Let's move freely." Sending the shadows away, Dunfang thought of going over to Wu Mailing's again. Go again, anyway. Since the medical examinations had passed, Dunfang couldn't just watch himself die halfway there. Halfway through, Dunfang changed his mind and suddenly remembered Wang Yougao, the accountant of the brigade. As the accountant of Wang Village's brigade, Wang Yougao is the number 2 person in Wang Village anyway. To ask him to come forward and then help match, maybe it will work. Wang Yougao and Wu Manling have always had a good relationship. If he says anything, Wu Manling usually has to save him some face. There is a historical origin here. The water is deep. Thinking about it seriously, the reason that Wu Manling can be the secretary is that Wang Yougao has a special credit. Aside from the fact that Wang Yougao was Wu Manling's party introducer when the old party secretary Wang Lianfang fell from power, Wang Yougao also had the idea of going up. When he was really active, Wang Yougao discovered that he is not the only one who wanted to be the party secretary of the village. It's going to be a battle. After the comparison, one is half a caddy, one is 80 tails. In the eyes of the commune secretary, one palm, one back of the hand, both meet. Wang Yougao blinked. His two eyes can be said to be two excellent acuses, which can draw left and right bows. 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 2 is 2, plus 3 is plus 5 and subtract 2. He calculated easily, quickly, and efficiently. After some intense fiddling with Wang Yougao's eyeballs, the result came. Wang Yougao withdrew. He thought of another person, Wu Manling. Wu Manling has the conditions to carry this burden. He recommended Wu Manling to the higher level organization with the lyrics of Comrade Shao Jianbo in Taking Tiger Mountain by Strategy. Wu Manling, female, graduated from junior high school, literate, not afraid of hardship, high consciousness, strong party spirit, decent work style, modest and eager to learn, steadfast in life, and good in the masses. Wang Yougao's tongue turned into a big brush in an instant, and it used the bright red paint to turn Wu Manling into a big red flower in a blink. Well, he changed into a small piece of green leaf, which set off Wu Manling's side objectively, discreetly, and at ease. This attitude is high, very good, generous, fair, and responsible. It is a gesture of one heart for the public and everything for the business. Wang Yougao himself was moved by his own speech, and his eyes were red. His speech had a lyrical tone. The superior organization, Canon Hong's eyes also turned red. Emotionally, they resonated. Wang Yougao's attitude gave Canon Hong an excellent impression. Impressions are conclusions. Canon Hong acted resolutely, stretched out his arms, held Wang Yougao's hands tightly, and said loudly, "We respect your opinion. Fuck it, that's all." Wu Manling became the party secretary of Wang Village like this. Of course, Wu Manling knew about it. You respect me a foot, I respect you a yard. Secretary Wu saves the special faces for Accountant Wang both inside and outside the party meetings in Wang Village. I completely agree with Accountant Wang's speech, said Secretary Wu. Accountant Wang, what's your opinion? Secretary Wu said. The spirit of Accountant Wang's speech is my spirit, so I will not repeat it, Secretary Wu said. Accountant Wang, what else do you want to add? Secretary Wu said. Accountant Wang's prestige within and outside the party was established by Secretary Wu's repeated inquiries. Very thick, very domineering. Prestige is nothing but the right to speak. It's just the power of talking. That is, when you just finish the speaking, others always raise their hands to applaud. Not only the applause is crisp, but also lets you see, I am applauding for you. And what is it like with no prestige? It's fun. After you finish the speaking, others will cough, spit, adjust their sitting posture, and shake their calves. He doesn't need to cough, but has to make some noises in his throat, which sounds extremely uneasy. Then someone came up and spoke, and he wanted to have a personal opinion. After a lot of bullshit, he finally puts your opinion down. Your opinion is like a fart. The smell is there, but the news is gone. Wang Yugao is not at home. Dunfang smiled, made a look that it didn't matter if he was not at home, and politely chatted with Big Braid. This is the first time Dunfang has come to Big Braid's house, so she is extraordinarily enthusiastic. Big Braid never expected that Dunfang would come to visit so late. She was wondering, but still said happily, "It's Dunfang." Dunfang came to seek help, so he was a little embarrassed. After a few words, he didn't know what to say. Then he looked around. Big Braid said, "Do you want to see Yugao?" Dunfang smiled and said, "No, I'm not here for Accountant Wang." Big Braid was a little uneasy. "Then who do you want to see?" Dunfang became more stable, put honey in his mouth, and said, "Can't I come and see Auntie Big Braid?" Big Braid's face suddenly turned into a flower under the oil lamp, gurgling. She saw the bottom of him. "A little bastard, a little oil bottle, a shot. Your mother never dares to think of my daughter, but you dare, and you came to my house. Sanya died because of you. Do you also want my daughter to die in your hands? Go ahead and daydream. You have not fed yourself enough while feeding the pigs." Big Braid looked at Dunfang kindly and said, Dunfang is filial, and he knew that he would come to see Auntie Big Braid. "Sit down." Dunfang said, "No thanks. Are you busy lately?" Big Braid said, "What am I busy with? It's just 3 meals a day." Dunfang said, "That's hard work. I didn't know it before, but now that I've fed pigs, I realize that 3 meals a day ain't easy." Those words were ugly. Big Braid smiled and said, "It's not easy to feed pigs, but it's easy to feed people." Having that conversation, the atmosphere seemed a little wrong. Dunfang came up with his smile, not knowing what to say, a little unstoppable. The person was getting more and more nervous. However, it was not easy to walk away. Dunfang had no choice but to turn away from Big Braid, looking around. Dunfang's actions became more and more sneaky at Big Braid, and he looked like he had a bad heart. Big Braid stopped wrangling with Dunfang and said, "Dunfang, your mother keeps asking me to match you with someone, but you can't rush." Dunfang said and said, "Ignore her." Having said that, Dunfang's eyes have been pinned to the wall, where there's a large frame with an enlarged photo of Big Braid's daughter. Big Braid glanced at Dunfang and believed her judgment even more, that the boy was uneasy. His cunning intestines have swum in her home. Big Braid stretched out her hand, patted Dunfang's shoulder, and said, "Dunfang, you can eat hot tofu in a hurry. Listen to Auntie. You'll burn yourself in a hurry." In fact, it was a threat. Dunfang's mind was not here at all. How could he read between Big Braid's lines? Dunfang said, "When have I been in a hurry? I'm not in a hurry." Listen to his tone. Listen to Dunfang's tone. He is so certain Big Braid's daughter is already Dunfang's. Big Braid got angry and didn't want to chat with him anymore, and said, "Dunfang, I want to see the rabbits. Auntie won't talk to you anymore." It's like expelling guests. Dunfang could not ask for it, and said, "Then I will come to see Auntie later." He hurriedly left. Big Braid was silent for a while, and when she was still angry, she came to the outside of the patio and shouted sharply into the dark alley, "Wenfang! Wenfang! Wenfang!" Dunfang was going far away when he heard Big Braid shouting his daughter's name hoarsely. Wenfang finally responded from a distance. After a while, Dunfang heard Big Braid scolding from a distance. "Where did you go, huh? Where did you die?" Wenfang seemed to retort, with a small interval in between. The scolding voice of Big Braid came from afar. "Your father and mother are both dead, huh? This thing was born by Mom without Dad's thought. As soon as it gets dark, you wander around. Shameless thing, cheap thing, ran again, and I'll break your pig legs. Dunfang could hear clearly from a distance, but he didn't expect Big Braid to be such a powerful character. Never seen it before. Her daughter went out to visit. Why would she use such vicious words to scold her daughter? Dunfang walked back alone in the dark night. Although it was not long after dinner, Wang village had finally quieted down, and there were signs of late night. It's cold. Many people have turned off their lights and gone to bed, and only a few people still have some sporadic light. Those lights split out from the door frame, flat, squeezed out with the strength of sucking, and then went out. There was dead silence everywhere. The man looks like he's at the bottom of a well. Occasionally, there are baby cries or two, and dog bark or two. All far away, and there's nothing else left. The world is full of darkness. But Dunfang has to run for his own future, which is actually a dying struggle. Thinking about it like this, Dunfang suddenly felt a hint of desolation, and there was an aura of grief and sadness in private. He was surrounded by them, powerless. Wang village is his world. The world is like that, such and such. No light, no heat, no movement, no life. There is only an invisible sky, invisible ground, invisible wind, and invisible cold. Also, the invisible distance and tomorrow. Dunfang was walking in the dark, and he was a little dazed for a moment. Because he couldn't see himself, Dunfang was a little suspicious of whether there was himself in this world, or that he was magnified and melted into the night. Dunfang stood on his feet and bit his tongue. It hurt. Dunfang was convinced that he had not been melted by the night and still existed. That is to say, the desolation is real, the grief is real, and the sadness is also real. Can't escape. Dunfang in turn hopes that this is a dream. Unfortunately, no. Wang Yougao was not found. Who should he look for? Dunfang hesitated in the dark. Going to Wumaling directly is definitely not the way to go. In fact, there is not much hope. It's better to ask someone to detour in the middle. Ask who? He really can't think of anyone. Dunfang felt that he was a bird flying in the dark night, and he was not sure when he was hit by something. Now flying is not a choice. If you don't fly, you can only fall and eventually hit the ground. Same. Dunfang had no choice but to raise his head and look around in the dark night. He saw the big tile-roofed house of Xinglong. Although the big tiled house is the same as the night, it is black. The big tiled house is not the same in the end. It's darker, more solid, and more stiff. Noticed. Why not ask Xinglong? After all, Secretary Wu is also a human being, and a human would get sick. Xinglong is a barefoot doctor, and their relationship is stronger than that of ordinary people. Dunfang stood at the door of Xinglong's house in the darkness. Suddenly, both sides recognized each other from the darkness, and both were stunned for a while, unexpectedly. Dunfang was really desperate and reckless. How could he come to Xinglong? What an awful idea. Since the day when Sanya died, the two have never met, not once. Both were avoiding. Both were afraid of looking into each other's eyes, especially Xinglong, who deliberately avoided him. Dunfang suddenly appeared at the door of the house. Xinglong was at a loss, and he had mixed feelings. Xinglong did not invite Dunfang into the main room, but called Dunfang into the kitchen. Xinglong still has to be guarded more or less. Xinglong didn't know what Duanfang was going to say. If he talked about Sanya, it would be more convenient since there were no outsiders in the kitchen. Xinglong was anxious in his heart after all. He closed the door, took out a cigarette, put one on the stove, took out another, and lit it himself. Both were smoking lightly and not speaking. Eyes do not look at each other. Duanfang's eyes just stare at the stove of Xinglong's house, looking up and down, but unexpectedly found a wine bottle on the stove, more than half full. Duanfang's mouth crooked. He smiled, picked up the wine bottle, lifted the stopper, and put it under his nose. It was wine. Duanfang raised his neck and took a big mouthful. This sip of wine seemed to be just right. With activating power, it burned, and the skin on Duanfang's face was drawn together, focusing on the top of the bridge of his nose. His eyes were also tightly closed, looking in pain. But suddenly, Duanfang's expression suddenly loosened. Like a firecracker, it opened with a pop, and he let out a long sigh of relief. Duanfang put down the wine bottle and said, "Want a sip?" The eyes of both of them were focused on the wine bottle. Xinglong didn't speak. He recognized that Duanfang was still sad for Sanya. After such a long time, he still couldn't let go. It looked like he could never forgive himself for the rest of his life. Xinglong's nose turned sour, and his eyes turned red. Xinglong lowered his head, sadness and remorse welling up in his heart. Xinglong said, "Duanfang, we're good brothers. Don't be shy to fight or stab. Do whatever you want. As long as you're happy, you can do whatever you want. I am sorry for you in my life." Duanfang did not expect Xinglong to say such words and did not understand. Fortunately, Duanfang was a smart person and immediately understood the meaning of Xinglong. Duanfang took a deep breath, raised his head, closed his eyes, and while sighing, he pressed his palm in the air a few times and then patted Xinglong's shoulder 3 or 4 times. "Don't talk about this," said Duanfang. "She doesn't have that fortune. You can save her, and I can save her. It's long gone. Let's not talk about this. Never talk about this." Duanfang played with the wine bottle. The expression on his face was a little hesitant, and he said to the wine bottle, "Xinglong, you still remember what you said. You persuaded me again and again to let me be a soldier." Xinglong's eyes raised, looking at Duanfang, staring closely at Duanfang. Duanfang also glanced at Xinglong and then moved away. He was still staring at the wine bottle, and his tone of voice suddenly became eager, saying, "Xinglong, please help me, please help me. Please ask Secretary Wu to let me go." Xinglong turned his head to the side. In a blink, he understood what Duanfang meant, and at the same time, he was completely relieved. Xinglong said, "Let's go." Duanfang said, "Where are you going?" Xinglong said, "Go to Secretary Wu." Duanfang felt coy, mainly because he felt empty. He grabbed the bottle again and said vaguely, "I'll wait for you here." Xinglong didn't say anything else and went out alone. 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes later, Xinglong came back and walked directly into the kitchen. For someone like Xinglong who is used to being lazy, his actions can be said to be vigorous and resolute, which is rare. Duanfang took it. When Xinglong came back, Duanfang was holding the wine bottle tightly with both hands, raised his head, looked at Xinglong, and said nervously, "How is it?" Xinglong glanced at the bottom of the wine bottle. It was empty. Xinglong said, "We've talked about it." Duanfang smiled, a little unnatural, and said, "How is it? What did she say?" Xinglong said, "She said you go by yourself." Duanfang said, You say, is there any hope? Xinglong said, Of course there is. Otherwise, why would she let you go there? Duanfang just sat there and didn't move, staring at the wine bottle. Xinglong said, What are you still doing sitting here? She's waiting for you. Duanfang thought about it. Yes, he still had to go. Duanfang held the tabletop with both hands and stood up with force. Xinglong wanted to send him, but Duanfang said, No thanks. Duanfang didn't realize that he was drinking too much, not only too much, but also too fast. As soon as he went out, and before he took more than 10 steps, the cold wind took his bones, and the wine actually came up, very fierce, and rushed straight to the top of his head. Duanfang felt that there was something wrong with his head, and he was always going to float up. Fortunately, Duanfang is in good health and has enough weight to hold it. In order to prove that he wasn't drunk, Duanfang began to count his steps, from 1 to 10, and there was nothing wrong. Duanfang was very satisfied, and he didn't even look drunk. However, the weight has changed. Heavy and light, sometimes heavier, sometimes lighter. Now heavier, then lighter. It all depends on how high the ground is. Duanfang staggered and swayed all the way, shaking and shaking out Duanfang's heroic spirit. Duanfang suddenly became optimistic, extremely confident, and determined that he could pass this level. Duanfang thought about it, prepared the draft, and when he got to the brigade headquarters, as soon as they met, Duanfang would say to Secretary Wu generously, Manling, the motherland needs to be built, but it needs to be defended even more. Duanfang's belly draft actually didn't come in handy. Duanfang pushed open the door, and before he could stand still, he burped. Taking advantage of the burp, Duanfang glanced at the dog at the table. The dog was properly leashed. It seemed that Wu Manling had already taken care of it and would not pose any threat to Duanfang. Wu Manling didn't sit on the bench, but sat on the edge of the bed. There was a hood lamp on her left side, and the light illuminated half of Wu Manling's face. Although there was only half of her face, Duanfang still noticed Wu Manling's abnormality this night. Wu Manling was neat and tidy all of a sudden, and it could be seen that she had carefully cleaned up. The hair is meticulous, neatly combed back to the head. The forehead is a piece of sparse bangs. The traces of the comb teeth can be seen clearly. Of course, there are traces of water, and the neckline is also carefully. It is the neckline of the tunic suit. The disciplinary button is tightly buttoned, and it is symmetrically attached to the neck, and there's a circle of snow-white shirt collar inside, looming. Wu Manling put her hands on her thighs and sat upright on the edge of the bed, quietly, with an indescribable charm, but a more compelling heroic spirit, which was compelling. With only a glance, Duanfang's draft in his belly was instantly gone, and he looked at Wu Manling foolishly. After looking at her for a long time, Duanfang finally looked carefully. Wu Manling was not aggressive at all. On the contrary, she looked sad and complained very much. Wu Manling finally spoke. She said, Duanfang, how come you did it? This sentence is out of mind. Duanfang didn't know what he had done wrong, so he swallowed, and he was more than half sober. Wu Manling said, Duanfang, I've been waiting for you. How can you ask someone else to tell me about your affairs? It's like our relationship is not good, but me and others are good. It's like we are not close. I'm close to someone else instead. Wu Manling spoke those words quite slowly, and her voice was not high, but at the end her voice trembled. Her words were suddenly filled with sadness. Obviously, she was not happy, very sad. Dunfang's whine came up again at such a moment. Dunfang was afraid. Without thinking about it, his knees softened and he knelt down facing Wu Manling's bed. Such a move was too sudden and unexpected. Even Wu Manling's dog was startled, and he shrunk back suddenly, staring at Dunfang very vigilantly. Dunfang's mind was not on the dog. His head kept knocking on the ground, and while knocking, he said, "Secretary Wu, please, Secretary Wu, I'm begging you, please let me go. I'll be a dog for you. I'll wash the door for you. I'll bite people for you. I beg you." This scene, in turn, made Wu Manling startled, and Wu Manling looked at Dunfang on the ground. Her heart was suddenly cold and broken. Wu Manling really don't bear to watch it any longer. She turned her head and finally closed her eyes. Tears welled up. "Dunfang, get up," Wu Manling said. "Dunfang, go back." "Secretary Wu, I'm begging you." The whine made him unstoppable. Dunfang was still talking. His saliva was already flowing. Dunfang woke up at 9 in the morning the next day. When he woke up, he had a headache, like it was about to crack. Dunfang had to hold his head with his hands, but it didn't work, and his mouth was so thirsty that even a stool bucket of water could fill it. How can this happen? Dunfang began to think, reviewing it bit by bit. Thinking about it, he drank it at Xinglong's house, and he was drunk. But Dunfang was only able to recall so much. What did he do after drinking? How did he come back? His mind went blank, and he couldn't remember it anymore. Dunfang rolled over and let out a long sigh of relief. Camel was not there. The house was empty, just as his memory. Everything was so empty. Hongqi came in suddenly, looking very happy. Hongqi said, "Awake?" Dunfang narrowed his eyes, but his head couldn't keep up for a while. He just pointed to a bowl on the table with his chin and said, "Pour me a bowl of water." Hongqi picked up the bowl, twisting around looking for the kettle, but couldn't find it. Hongqi said, "Where's the water?" Dunfang said, "You don't know where the water is? Go and scoop it from the river." Hongqi happily scooped up a bowl of water from the river and handed it to Dunfang. Dunfang took it and drank it all. He returned the empty bowl to Hongqi and said, "One more." After a bowl of cold water was poured into his stomach, Dunfang was much better, and after burping twice, a smell of alcohol rushed out, which was very smelly. Even Dunfang himself felt unpleasant. In a blink, Hongqi had already brought the second bowl of water to Dunfang, but Dunfang did not pick it up and said, "It's a fucking heartburn." Hongqi said, "Why did you drink so much?" Dunfang thought about it, turned his face. He said inexplicably, "How did you know I was drinking?" Hongqi's face showed a flattering smile and said, "Why don't I know? Let me tell you. I carried you back here last night." Dunfang smiled and said, "Really?" Hongqi said, "You are too heavy and my feet are swollen." Dunfang put his lower lip in his mouth and said, "Why didn't Xinglong carry me?" Hongqi said, "Xinglong, I brought you back from the brigade." Dunfang took a breath and said, "Why was I at the brigade?" Hongqi shook his head stupidly and said, "I don't know." Dunfang said to himself, "What was I doing there?" Hongqi said, "I don't know. I just saw you kneeling on the ground, kowtowing to Secretary Wu." "What did you say?" Hongqi repeated, "You were kneeling on the ground and kowtowing to Secretary Wu." Hongqi's words were a thunderclap that exploded in Dunfang's ears. Hongqi's words were also a gap. Through this gap, Dunfang remembered, vaguely, that he seemed to have seen Wu Manling. Why was I kneeling on the ground? Why Koto? Dunfang was thinking, but he really couldn't remember. Dunfang looked at Hongqi and stared at him closely. Hongqi didn't seem to be lying. Dunfang smiled, got out of bed, stood in front of Hongqi, and said, "How many of you last night?" Hongqi took a step back and said, "I was the only one." Dunfang stepped up and said, "You saw it all?" Hongqi took another step back and said, "I saw it." Dunfang took another step forward, becoming more pleasant, and said, "Hongqi, go behind the door and bring me that hemp rope." Hongqi brought it for him. Dunfang said, "Tie a knot." Hongqi tied a knot at one end of the rope. Dunfang said, "Give it to me." Hongqi honestly put the hemp rope into Dunfang's hand. Dunfang took the hemp rope, sturdy slapped Hongqi, quickly put the loop around Hongqi's neck, and threw the other end on the roof beam. Dunfang's two hands pulled, and Hongqi's feet immediately left the ground. Before Hongqi could figure out what was going on, his body was suspended in the air. In just a moment, Hongqi's face turned purple. "Did you tell anyone else?" Hongqi fluttered in the air with two legs and two arms. He wanted to speak, but couldn't. Fortunately, his mind was not messed up at this time. His head shook twice with great difficulty. "Have you ever told anyone?" Hongqi still wanted to shake his head, but this time he was unsuccessful. His mouth was open and his eyes were extremely round, and they were about to fly out. And there was a danger of falling. But Hongqi's eyeballs didn't fall. On the contrary, they were inserted upwards. There was no black on his eyeballs, but all white. Dunfang's hand loosened and let go. Hongqi fell to the ground with a thud, paralyzed, tongue out. He was panting like a dog on the ground. As soon as Hongqi could breathe, he knelt under Dunfang's feet and said, "Dunfang, I didn't say anything, I didn't." Dunfang squatted down and said, "I know you didn't say it, but I don't know if you will say it in the future." Hongqi said, "I won't say it, I'm not stupid." Hongqi looked at Dunfang and immediately added, "I swear." Dunfang said, "You swear to your ass." Dunfang pulled Hongqi and ran outside all the way to the pigsty. Dunfang grabbed the pig feces from the pigsty, slapped it on the wall, and said, "You eat it. I can trust you only if you eat it." Hongqi looked at the feces and looked at Dunfang. He made up his mind and started eating. His entire mouth was black. He stretched his neck and swallowed. Dunfang turned his head and felt disgusted for a while, and heard Hongqi say, "Dunfang, I'm loyal to you." Dunfang turned his head and slapped Hongqi's cheek twice. "Hongqi, we're brothers, right?" Hongqi looked into Dunfang's eyes, frightened. It wasn't until now that he was really scared. He started trembling and couldn't help himself. Hongqi said, "Dunfang, if you still don't believe in my loyalty, I will eat another one." Dunfang smiled and said, "Go to the river and wash your mouth. How can I not trust you?"